Okay, guys. Apparently the pass assistant told me that some people were a bit concerned about how to model up the pergola, and so I'm going to do a quick demonstration of one way of doing that. This student has already got a pergola, but I'll just kind of show you how you can model it up using one particular method. Another method is shown in one of our Archicad manual extracts, which you can get on our Moodle site as well. I think the training handouts, I think it might be number 6. But first of all, let's just get a section. And let's take a section through this house. And what I'm going to do, I've just drawn that section by using the viewpoint tool. I held the shift button down, and then I just looked to the left. But then if I kind of right click and go open with current view settings, it should have all the layers in it, but there's a few things I want to show here. First of all, where this beam is. Now don't worry too much about the sizes of the beam. This beam looks quite deep actually at 240, but even though you may have designed them in your class with the AMOS, as long as they're not really wafer thin, something like 140 would be fine. And the way this student has designed them may be joist hangers on the right hand side, but the crucial thing really is the fact that at least the beam is above the level of the window head. And basically let's just measure that window head. So if we go up to M for measure and go from here down to the bottom, and it's 2 meters. Now I'm pretty sure that the window heads on the ground floor should be actually 2.2. So I'm going to make that door. I'm pretty sure we said in the ground floor that it had to be 2.2. So maybe this student was a bit concerned about the beam interfering with that. So let's put that up and see what happens. So this should make this window go up. Now what that means is that I'm just going to take this thing down. So I'll just check that window again. Check the height of it, because I think the width, that's the height. This should be 2.2 not. Then header to wall base. That should mean that this the gap. So I'll just bring this dialog box over. So I think I forgot to put the height. It was 2000. So header to wall base should fill that little gap at the bottom. So that should disappear now. Now I think what I'm going to do is, looking at that, our beams have to be up here somewhere, and it may well have to fit in underneath that eaves as well. So you may find that we have to change this, but let's just try this at a smaller size than previously. So she's drawn it with a beam tool, and I'll just check what the size, see what size will work. So I'll just check 240 or make that 140, and the height is 2390. I'll just leave that the way it is, and we'll just click OK. And you can see that that will fit above the window head and probably underneath the fascia. So I mean, this looks as if there's been extended kind of barge at the end, but don't worry about that at this stage. These design drawings, in fact, you may be able to pull it down a little bit more, and when we design it, there'll probably be a stringer here, but we don't need to do that at this stage. So what we're looking about doing is drawing some columns and some beams. So we've got a beam like a rafter going out from the wall. You're going to have a beam here, which could be 240. So that one is 240 up here. And then if we leave that one as being 240, you could have it even down so that that beam is, dragged down. So it's actually at the bottom of this one. And that would mean that this beam goes all the way out to the edge. And that could save you money on joist hangers. This beam may not even have to be 240 either, but as I say, we're not designing them at this stage. If we were to take that beam as being 240 in this section, I mean, this student has drawn a deck in concrete. I'm going to just change that. I don't want it to be concrete, so I'm just going to say make this just airspace for now. And even though the deck has been drawn as level, I'm going to drag that down a bit. So I'm going to say edit, move, drag, and just say drag it down. I'm going to say Y 150 minus, and that should then take us into what we have with our 3604 and E2 AS1 And once you've got your deck level established and the finished floor level here, our column is probably a little bit small here now. So what I'll do is I'll just measure. I'll just leave this beam the way it is at 240. I'll go up to the measuring tool, or I'll press M, and I'll just say, well, from that column to here, it's going to be 2160. So you can just about see that. So I know when I model my columns, 2160, but even if you don't get them right the first time, we can always adjust it in section and before we drag any copies. So let's just try that. So what we'll do is we'll go into the ground floor, and I'm just going to go into where her columns are, and we'll just say, okay, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of this. I'm pretty sure this student has done what should be done, and she's modeled the beams on the first floor, and that's really good. So see the way these beams are modeled here, but again, I'll model those a little bit later. So what we'll do first is go back to the ground floor, turn off that trace reference, and we'll just turn on all the layers so we can see the deck. And I'll just put a column in. Now I may not even need to put this beam all the way to that wall. I'll maybe just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll put in 3 columns. So let's go to the column tool. And when it comes up, I'm just going to put a square column. So this height here is quite high. So I'm going to say it's on the ground floor. I'm not sure why it's down here. So I'll just say 0 for that. And then the height, I think we worked out, was 2160, but we'll just try it and then check it on section again. And so we don't have any link at the top. Column, yes, segment. Should let us decide whether we want it to be square or circular. Let's just go with the square one, 90 by 90. And we'll just try putting that in. And what I'll do is I'll put it in at the end because I want to make sure that it's visible in my section. So I'll just drag that over. I'm just going to drag it to there. Now let's just go into the section tool again, and I've got the section open up here, and if there's a column. Now it's a little bit too short, or actually it's not too short, but it's actually the height, because I put it at the ground floor. I should have made it minus 150, so you can see how there's a little bit of a gap down here. So let's just go in there, and when we say here, we just say minus 150 to take up the difference between the finished floor level and the deck. And there I've got a column which is from my deck up to where I think my beam, my main veranda beam is going to be. So I'm just going to delete this beam, and we'll probably let's see, I'm just going to delete these other beams as well, by the way, guys. So I'll just delete all of these, and I may have to do this a number of times because there's quite a few of them. So what I'll do is I'll go up to the ground floor where these beams have been drawn, turn on all the layers again just to see all these things. And there's beam, 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 and I wouldn't have been able to delete these ones from the section because they're behind the section line. So I'm going to delete them all. And I know this column is in the right position now, so I'm going to drag 2 copies of it. So I just select it, shift click, go up to edit, go to, I think it's multiply, control U, and I'm going to just drag 2 copies. So I'll say distribute, 2 copies, and then go and say okay, okay. Zoom right in, get the corner, hold the shift button down, and then line it up with the framing here, and that's your columns. Okay, now let's go up to the first floor, and we will show the trace reference of the ground floor. And I want to put a beam, and I'm not going to make the beam touch this wall because I don't really want to create a tricky junction there, because if it's only for hanging plants, you know, we don't need to join it to this wall. The detail to join it to this one when we come to 5045 will be something we maybe will look at. So let's get the beam tool. The beam tool is here, and we're going to be drawing it. So once the dialog box opens up, we're on the first floor. Now from the first floor, I don't know what height this is going to be, so I might just put it in, check the height, and then see, you know, on my section where this beam actually is located in a vertical plane. So I'll just leave that the way it is. Let's just check the size of it again actually. So it's 200 by 90. Let's see, the depth, that's 240. Yeah, yeah, the depth is 200. Let's just make that just for change, make it 140 because it's not holding up an awful lot of load. So 140 by 90, we'll just try that one. And then I'm going to zoom right into here and then stretch this beam all the way down, hold the shift button and put it there. Now I'm on the first floor, so I just need to check and see why it's not showing up the way it should be. So it's on the first floor and that's offset to home story. I should have changed that. Just make that 0. I think because it was getting pushed into the roof story. So now we've got a nice solid line where that beam is. Let's open up the section so I can go to the tab up here if it's open, or if it's not, just right click on the center of that marker and go open with current view settings. And we can then see that this beam is probably a bit high. So there's my beam. So I'll just drag it down, shift click, Control D. I'll just make sure I grab it by the right place here. Bring it down and have it that it's sitting on top of the columns. Okay, so now we've got our columns, we've got our kind of main beam, and then we want the other ones. Now that one might be a little bit actually, clashing with the window head. So what I might do is I might make that a bit deeper. So let's make that beam 240 instead. Or it could be we'll make it a 190. Just see what that does. So if that makes it 190, I'm going to have to drag it up a little bit because it's pushed into the column. So Control D, just drag this. Drag it up. And then I want to drag it back down so it sits on top of the column. So I'll just go Edit, Move, Drag, or you can use Control D and grab it here and just bring it down. And I think then the top of that beam should be, level with the top of the window. So any rafters we put spanning should be okay. So we're going to now put a beam going in from this direction. So let's go back to the first floor. And we've got, you can see our columns, you can see our beams. So I'm going to just put one beam in first and take it over to the wall. And then once I check the vertical height of it, I'll then multiply it just to put it to the end of the building. So let's go here, go to the beam tool. And 140 by 90 is fine. The one we adjusted was 190. So let's just say, yeah, that one's okay. We do not want it to be up that high again. So we'll just say, I think it was, I'll say minus 400 because the last time I made this level with the first floor and it was a bit high, I had to drag it. So let's just put this in, draw one from the edge of here, and then just take it down just about the wall here. And we'll leave that. And then go to your section again. If you've left the tab open, we should see a beam, and there's the beam. Now it's still too high as you can see, but all you got to do is then drag it down. And we know then that we've got our beam, rafters, whatever you want to call them, this edge beam, veranda beam, and the columns. And all that we know now that in section, everything is in the right position. It's not clashing with the window head. The column goes down to where it should be supported on the actual deck. So if I go back to the first floor, and we can just space out at maybe 600 or something. So I'll just grab this and say Edit, Move, Multiply. Instead of distribute, we'll spread them and we'll say it's going to be 600. And then we'll just see how many copies we're going to get at that. So I'll go zoom right in, go to the edge of this corner, and let's see how many we get. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'd say we get 11 will be less than 600, so I'll just escape out of that and do the multiply again. But let's see, move, multiply, and if you go to distribute and say, can we have 11? That means the spacing should be less than 600. So we zoom right in again, go like this, and then we'll go all the way over and just line it up here. And then we'll just measure the spacing from the edge here to the edge out here, which is the same as center to center, and it's 5, 6, 7. So I think if I do a 3D now, I think we should have something which hopefully, and there is your pergola, was the pergola, but it just shows you how we want to check. But you see the way that pergola now, you've got the rafters, and I mean these could probably be 45s, they shouldn't be 90, so actually they look a bit thick. So I'm just going to shift click on each of them, and just because they look a bit too heavy. So I'm going to do all 11. And then if we get their settings, and instead of that being 90, make it 45. And that should make things look a little bit more like a proper pergola. Let me just go back to the ground floor again to see if we can figure out what happened with that deck. So turn on this, and let's grab this deck and see. Let's get its settings. Ground floor current. Yeah. I'll make that 1500. And I'll just check and see. So selection 3D. Yeah. And let's go to 3D all. Show all. Yeah, so I think it must be because I had that as an airspace. So just be careful with that. But the main thrust of this was the pergola. So, the main message I wanted to show you was how the section can be such a useful tool in making sure you check where each thing is in relationship to each other. So that's all for now. Sorry we got a little bit distracted there, but hopefully this video will still be of some use to you.